saying that, look, pretty plainly stated, as far as I listened to closely, saying that these should not be a first-line treatment for chronic pain. And that's not the way the medical culture has thought about this for some time. The FDA now talking about black box warnings on these medications as well, to say there is a risk of abuse, of addiction, and even death for these things. So there are some solutions, some things that are changing as a result. One of the things you said, Mr. President, was this idea that the substance didn't get plausible, is the way is what you said. And I want to ask you, Justin, about that. We know how everybody in this room feels about addiction as a brain disease, but that's still a hotly contested topic outside of this room. People talk about the fact that is this a choice? Is there becoming a moral failure? All those things. Your experience, and also how do you counsel the people in the recovery, the organization?
Really glad you asked this question. I'm certainly not, again, a doctor. My sister's the doctor. I'm not an expert. Try to be fully aware of what's going on everywhere with the different ways in which the clause thing happens. I relate to that personally. But what I believe in, what I would consider myself an advocate, is opportunity to help. And so the question, I'll start with one of the statements you said, Mr. President, which this is good for everybody. This isn't like one of those things that we're talking about that affects a very small amount of people, and even if it wasn't, that's always good that we're trying to help anybody that we can. But since I'm not an expert when it comes to disease, not a disease, choice, not a choice, I really try to, and will, publicly, completely step aside from that conversation, because that is my role, or even our organization's role, to have that discussion from a medical perspective. But what we will say, and what the results that we have seen all over the country, through our chapters and leaders and all over, is that given the opportunity. And so this is something that I'm very excited to be able to share. So this is something that I genuinely believe if you are or have been a person, right, you can relate to it. Is that whether you may have made some choices that you weren't proud of, right? That maybe there was a choice that you said, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe even something happened to you that was out of your direct sphere of control and influence. You can relate to the fact that, if somebody just gave me a real shot at this and an opportunity, I may not even know how I got into the situation or how these plots came here, whether somebody plotted to me or I even did this to myself. But instead of focusing on that and being able to medically speak to that, I think the real opportunity is the opportunity. That's what this country is supposed to be about, right? Giving people an opportunity to get the resources and the tools that they need so they can and will and do recover all over the place.
As I said, I was lucky. I don't know why. Friends of mine who have addiction were not less worthy or more morally suspect than I was. For whatever reason, things broke that way. But I think Justin's point is correct, which is regardless of how individuals get into these situations, and we don't know everything. There may end up being genetic components to how susceptible you are to addiction, and addictions may be different for different people. What we do know is that there are steps that can be taken that will help people out through addiction and get on the other side. And right now, that's under resource. And what we also know is that there are steps that we as a society could take that would help young people adjust and adapt to a rapidly changing, sometimes confusing world in a way that's healthier rather than more destructive. And it is affecting everybody. We do know that if you are poor, you're more vulnerable. You don't have the same antibodies to protect yourself. You don't get the same second chances. And so part of the goal, hopefully coming out of this conference, is that because opioids affect everyone, but speak to a broader issue of how do we treat addiction but we're also paying attention to children who have a lot less resources than your or my children do. Because lo and behold, it turns out that if there's a market for heroin in inner city in Baltimore, it's not going to take that long before those drugs find their way to a wealthy suburb outside of Baltimore. And I now have kids in high school, and I'm well aware that their access to, their ability to access legal or illegal substances is very high. They are just less likely to get in trouble, get thrown in jail, and have a permanent felony record than the kids who live in those inner cities. But again, to use the analogy, we care a lot about making sure no children in America have tuberculosis, because if a child has tuberculosis, it's poor at some point, they can give my child who's well-to-do tuberculosis. And the same is true for addiction. It has an impact that can run through society as a whole, and that's what we've got to pay attention to.
Obviously, you're absolutely correct. But truly,
Let me just say that I am in Washington, D.C., and that is rarely said.
so the thing that would go on the record, if you will, is, you know what, you are absolutely correct. What I've also found, though, is that it's even more, though. I used to think, and even I think my family was, well, what do we do? Tell me what to do for him. If we did this or if we did that, will the result change? And where we're at with what we do now and what the experts are telling us is that it's not an either-or solution here. This is an all. It is time for the country to go all in on this. That this isn't just simply just preventing or treatment or recovery, but it is everything. And it is maybe for us, what we talked about last, which is why I wanted to pipe back in, right? Is that, what do we do with our members, right? I mean, what are we doing that is so exceptionally, extraordinarily different than other places? And it's because we're empowering them and we are equipping them. Then I was asking them for the briefing before all this stuff, what's that thing that changed for you, right? Because I was given great opportunities, I was given amazing types of programs and treatment, but it was in a single moment in time when somebody looked eyeball to eyeball with me and said, you have value. That regardless of maybe some of the choices you made, whether you put those claws there, whether somebody else did, is that you have value. One day, you got a lot to learn. You got to listen and stop talking so fast, but you got to focus up. And you have to know that you have value so you can give other people hope and help equip them and empower them. The way that we do that is through employment, housing, education, and other recovery-related resources. And those first three, that is not unique to young people, or even when I was even younger, right? Or people of any age or of any recovery pathway. Those are things that individuals, all individuals in this country need. And when we start to have that conversation of that's how we go all in, and we support adequate recovery resources and employment, housing, and educational resources, we can do this thing together.
It's a multi-dimensional issue. We have to address all these things. I want to ask almost about the next step. This is a story, as far as I know, is very personal to you. The story of Jennifer Grubb. Somebody goes in, they've gone through recovery now. They're in recovery, and they go in the hospital for something unrelated, and they're given a prescription for narcotics, for opiates again. They tell the doctors, look, I'm a drug addict. I cannot take this stuff. If I do, I'll be right back on the road to addiction again, and I could even die. That is what happened with Jennifer Grubb, Mr. President. The stigma exists at all levels, even within the medical establishment. After someone has been treated, someone is in recovery. Even then, you'll be fine. I'll still give you these opiate pain medications.
Well, then this is where the training of the medical community comes in. There's been some controversy in this discussion around making this education mandatory. I think the medical community independence and over-regulation of medical communities. We have been getting some good volunteer efforts going, and I applaud those. We have to see how good the take-up is, because if in fact the training is not sufficient, then we may have to take a look at the possibilities of mandatory training. I will tell you that within the federal government, for example, we have said if you're going to treat somebody who's on a federal employee or part of the federal health insurance program, you need to get trained. And so far, I think there's about 75% of the medical community that treats federal employees. I was able to do that through executive action. But I just go back to Crystal's point. I don't want Crystal, if she is ready to get treatment and to do right by her kids, I want somebody who is fully supportive who she's interacting with on day one. I don't want somebody who's got attitude. I don't want somebody who is misinformed. I don't want somebody who is not familiar with the best options that are available. I want somebody who's going to embrace her and say, let's go. Let's see what we can do for it. And I want to make sure that those doctors and perhaps nurses as well, because in some communities there aren't going to be enough doctors. And one of the issues that we have to address is that we use, I just have to love nurses as a general rule. Because they're overworked, underpaid, and are really just the foundation for so much of our healthcare system. But all the providers, I want to make sure that they're getting the resources and the reimbursements through, whether it's third-party insurance or Medicaid or Medicaid, in order for them to be able to do right by Crystal. Because it's hard. And when somebody's ready to make that change, I want somebody to be right there with them, walking, not turning away.
And Mr. President, I would also add that we need people like Rose Noble and Justin and other people in recovery working as well, and specifically working with individuals with addiction. In Baltimore, so I'm very proud to represent the Baltimore City Health Department on behalf of our mayor, Mayor Ramos Blake as well, who really care about addiction as a public health issue. And we have individuals in our health department working at 24 needle exchange sites across the city. And which, our needle exchange program, I'll tell you one statistic that continues to really surprise me, but also this is why we do the work that we do. The percentage of individuals with HIV from IV drug use has decreased from 64% in 2000 to 8% in 2014. That's so much more powerful than me as a doctor saying to someone that recovery is possible. And we do the same thing when it comes to violence prevention as well, because we also believe that violence, just like addiction, just like other diseases, can spread. So we have a program in our city called Safe Streets that actually came from Chicago, from Chicago's Secure Violence Program, where we hire individuals who were recently incarcerated, who were recently released from incarceration, to walk the streets of Baltimore and interrupt violence. And these people are true heroes, and we need to find a way to reimburse and pay for peer recovery sessions that are the most effective messages.
You're also 100% correct. But we've seen, that person that you described, Mr. President, that when they're ready to get help, I mean, imagine them meeting me. I mean, if I can't encourage you, right? If your encourager is broken, right? I mean, you meet me when on your day of need and help, and you meet other young people or other people who are in recovery that have walked that journey. They are who better to do that along with other professionals in our we said a long time ago, and again, I'm going to go back to that one thing, is we decided to say, we're just going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to be the solution in the meantime until all these policies change. And so what our chapter leaders and members have been doing is they've been providing those direct services and hosting all recovery support meetings, helping build recovery schools, collegiate recovery communities, and that action has been able to attract enough attention because we're doing it. We're not waiting for things to change. Our amazing leaders are literally changing the communities regardless of bias, stigma, bias, or straight up discrimination against their own population. But what has happened is even bigger insurance companies and other providers have come up and said, we will literally even pay you to further build out your own infrastructure, to put chapters around our communities, and this is a win-win. Again, this is good for everybody. So now big insurance says, we're going to pay you to go do what you were already going to do anyway. It helps the people in recovery. It helps the people that need